Hello, in this lecture I'm going to show you several ways through which you can manipulate your layers. Let's start with this PSD. I'll grab the first folder called Rainy and I'll hit Ctrl-T. You already know you have to hold down Shift when you want to resize it. This constrains your aspect ratio and it prevents any iffy transformations. That's great, but let's add another hotkey into the mix, Alt. So now I'm holding down Shift and Alt and I'm resizing it from this top left corner. Notice how the group shrinks from all sides. If I no longer hold Alt, I'll now resize it just from this top left corner. So that's something to keep in mind when you want to resize from all sides. This isn't limited to your corner handles. If I grab the top middle one, you can see how it becomes taller. Now when I hold Alt as well, it will immediately expand at the bottom at the same rate. Let me press Escape and we'll enter Free Transform for another option. Instead of going to Edit, Transform, and going through all these possibilities, I suggest you click directly on the canvas after you've used Ctrl-T. Here, one of my go-to options is this, Flip Horizontal. In this case, it doesn't make much sense, but you'll see how this will come in handy for lots of projects. I can also flip it vertically. Great stuff. Let me press Escape and enter Free Transform yet again. One of the lesser-known facts about this feature is this central symbol. Do you see it? Let me zoom in really close. This is useful when you want to rotate your layers. If I go anywhere outside my group, you can see I get this cursor. If I click and drag, this card is going to rotate, but notice its behavior. This acts like a tack that's pinned to its middle point. That's what this symbol does. If I drag it to the bottom left and I continue my rotation, you can see it's now moving based on that point. So this is fantastic because it changes its behavior on the fly. If you don't want to drag it, hold Alt and click anywhere. Now it's just moved to the top right. As I rotate, you can see this measurement shows up on my canvas. This tells me to what degree I've rotated my group. The same value is displayed up in my options bar. Speaking of that, if you focus on its left side, you'll notice this grey icon. This controls the middle symbol. If I click anywhere, you'll see how it will jump to that position. This is particularly helpful if you want to place it in its original position, but you're not sure where that was. Click here and you'll get that instantly. Going back to our rotation, maybe you want to revert as well. Instead of fiddling with it back and forth, clear this value. Now type in 0, which is what I initially had. Simple and easy. Enter any other value and it will immediately jump to it. I love the fact that you can eyeball certain results, but you can also use specific values in case you want precision. Let me press Escape and I'll rasterize this group by clicking in the Layer panel. You won't see a rasterize option because this is a folder. So this is the command we're looking for, Merge Group. I always like to stay with my cursor on the canvas, so for the same effect I prefer the hotkey Ctrl-E. This is the Merge command. Now I can use Ctrl-T and right-click to explore some of these other options. For example, I can play around with its perspective. Drag any anchor point and you'll see how it immediately transforms. Combine this with a realistic shadow and your new perspective is going to look on point. Another option is Distort. This gives you complete freedom regarding this layer's manipulation. You can obtain interesting effects through it. I highly recommend you open this PSD and explore all these settings because unless you play around with each one, you won't get the full experience. The last effect I want to cover from this list is Warp. This allows for individual modification of each corner. Click and drag and you can do all sorts of crazy things with it. Imagine this is a label and you want to place it on a bottle. This will allow you to do that with ease. But say you can't get pixel perfect settings. Not a problem. You can go to the options bar and use this drop-down. Here you have a substantial list of predefined settings. For my bottle example, bulge might work best. But you can also click one and scroll through several options. If you see one that fits your needs, you can further customize it by adjusting its settings from this right side. All in all, great stuff. Let me show you two more techniques and then we can continue with our Photoshop journey. In case you have a large PSD and you have too many layers, you can flatten them by using the same Merge command. In this Rainy group, I have another folder called Clouds. As you can see, it features several layers, but say I have no interest in editing them individually. Not a problem. Select all of them and hit Ctrl-E. you've just merged them together. Let me undo, because I could have done that with its group. Control E, and there you go. But if you want to flatten your PSD completely, you can go to the top menu system and click on Layer. From this list, choose Flatten Image from the bottom. Now we have one single layer, and it's also locked. This may come in handy from time to time, but it's not a recommended method. Here's what I prefer instead. Whenever I want to create one single layer that contains everything in my project, I do the following. I select the highest layer or group from my Layers panel, and I use Alt, Control, Shift, E. This long hotkey tells Photoshop to look at every single layer and group and merge them all together, including the selected one. Please note that it only works if you're on a visible layer. If I disable my background and try the hotkey, nothing is going to happen. Furthermore, if I enable this layer but I hide this one, once I hit Alt, Control, Shift, E, I'll get a new layer that contains everything except that hidden one, so that's something to be aware of. Okay, I hope you found all these useful. Try them out for yourself on this PSD and see how you do. If you have any questions, just let me know in the comments section. Have fun!